The smell of grease and stale cigarettes usually felt like home to Mia, but today it felt like a cage. She was slumped in the vinyl booth at the Rusty Spoon, surrounded by Jax and the others. They were passing around a lighter, laughing about a history test they were currently missing, while Mia stared at the neon sign flickering in the window. The bell above the door jingled, and walked Leo. He looked entirely out of place in his neatly ironed polo and a backpack that actually had books in it. The table went dead silent as he scanned the room, his eyes landing directly on Mia. "What is the choir boy doing here?" Jax sneered, leaning back and blowing a plume of smoke toward the ceiling. "You lost Leo? The library is 3 blocks over." Leo didn't flinch. He walked straight to their table, ignoring the hostile stares. "Mia, you left your chemistry notebook in the lab. I thought you might need it for the final." "I don't need it," Mia said, her voice shaking slightly. She tried to look bored, but the weight of her failing grades was pressing against her chest. "I'm done with that class." "You're not done," Leo said quietly. "You're just hiding." The breaking point. Jax stood up, his chair screeching against the tile. "She said she's done. Move along before you get a lesson in something they don't teach in Sunday school." The tension in the diner was thick enough to choke on. The waitress froze behind the counter. Mia looked at Jax, his eyes were cold, full of the kind of freedom that usually ended in a police cruiser. Then she looked at Leo. He wasn't reaching for a fight. He was holding out her notebook like a lifeline. "Mia," Leo said, his voice steady despite Jax looming over him. "You told me last week you wanted to be a nurse. You can't help people if you aren't even here. There's more for you than this table. I know it, and deep down I think you know it too. You're choosing the easy no, because you're scared of a hard yes," Leo added, his gaze unwavering. "But grace doesn't ask you to be perfect. It just asks you to show up." Jax laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "She's one of us, man. Give it up." He reached for Mia's arm, but she pulled away. The silence that followed was the loudest thing in the diner. Mia looked at the notebook, then at the exit. 4 months she had been running away from her life, thinking she was being rebellious. But looking at Leo, she realized she was just being erased. "I'm going back," Mia whispered. "What?" Jax hissed. "I'm going back to school, Jax." Mia slid out of the booth, her heart hammering against her ribs. She took the notebook from Leo's hand. It felt heavier than it looked, heavy with a second chance. Without looking back at the wrong crowd, or the cold coffee, she walked out the door with Leo. The sunlight outside was blinding, but for the first time in a year, Mia didn't look for a place to hide. The next morning, the high school hallway felt like a gauntlet. Mia walked beside Leo, her grip tight on the straps of her backpack. She could feel the stares, some surprised, some mocking, but the heaviest gaze came from the far end of the lockers. Jax and the rest of the group were leaning against the wall, blocking the path to her first period class. The casual laughter died down as Mia approached. "Look who decided to join the living," Jax said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous octave. He stepped forward, ignoring the bell that had just rung. "What's the matter, Mia? You suddenly too good for us? Or did the preacher here brainwash you into thinking you're a saint?" Mia felt her throat tighten. 4 months, Jax's approval had been her only currency. "It's not about being a saint, Jax. I can't keep doing nothing. I'm failing everything." "We're all failing," a girl named Chloe piped up from behind Jax, her arms crossed. "That was the point. We were in it together. Now you're just a sellout." Leo stepped slightly forward, not aggressively, but enough to stand between Mia and the group. "She isn't selling out. She's just choosing a different path. You guys could too." Jax let out a sharp, jagged laugh and shoved Leo's shoulder. It wasn't enough to knock him over, but it was enough to make the hallway go silent. Eyes darted towards them from every direction. "Keep your sermons to yourself, Four Eyes. Mia, make a choice. Right now. You walk into that classroom and you're dead to us. You won't have anyone looking out for you." Mia looked at Jax. She saw the anger, but for the first time she also saw the fear in him. The fear that if one person left, the whole illusion of their cool rebellion would fall apart. She looked at Leo, who was bruised in spirit but standing his ground, his expression full of a quiet, stubborn grace. "I already made my choice at the diner," Mia said, her voice gaining a strength she didn't know she had. "And Jax, you weren't looking out for me. You were just helping me disappear." She didn't wait for his comeback. She stepped around him, her shoulder brushing his, and kept walking. As they reached the classroom door, Leo exhaled a breath he seemed to have been holding for a lifetime. That was intense, he admitted, adjusting his glasses. I think I'm shaking, Mia said, holding out her hand to show him. Are they always going to be like that? Maybe for a while, Leo said softly. But you aren't alone. There's God and a whole community of people who want to see you win, Mia. Not because of your grades but because of who you are. Come on, let's go find your seat. For the first time in a year, Mia sat in the front row. When the teacher started the lesson, she didn't open her phone or look for an exit. She opened her notebook and picked up a pen. As the teacher's voice faded into the background of a lecture on chemical bonds, Mia looked down at the margin of her notebook. She doodled a small, jagged heart, then smoothed the paper with her palm. The adrenaline from the hallway was fading, replaced by a quiet, steady warmth she hadn't felt in years. It reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen, the scent of peppermint tea and the sound of a worn Bible's spine cracking open. Her grandmother had passed away 2 years ago, right around the time Mia started cutting class and looking for exits, but her voice stayed tucked away in the back of Mia's mind like a saved message. Mia, honey, her grandmother would say, tapping a finger on a specific page, the world is going to tell you that you've wandered too far to turn back. They'll try to make you believe you're lost. But you listen to me. Mia whispered the words under her breath, a perfect echo of the verse her grandmother had lived by. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. She looked over at Leo, who was scribbling notes with focused intensity. He wasn't a superhero and he wasn't a judge. He was just a friend who had seen the hope and a future in her when she couldn't see it herself. Jax in the diner felt miles away now. They were part of a past version of herself that was obsessed with the harm, too scared to believe she deserved the prosper. Mia took a deep breath, picked up her pen and started to write. She wasn't just catching up on a chemistry lesson. She was finally showing up for the life she was meant to have. Thanks for listening. The moral of Mia's story is that your past mistakes are not your permanent identity. True transformation often begins the moment you stop running from your potential and start surrounding yourself with people who see your worth even when you don't. As Leo showed Mia, grace isn't just a concept, it's the practical courage to offer someone a seat at the table and a second chance, proving that no one is ever too far gone to choose a new direction. If this story resonates with you, type Amen and select another faith-based tale to indulge in.